Chapter 14, The Backway, Why You Should Never Visit the Metro Stations of the Backrooms. I woke up on a cold concrete platform to the sounds of a massive amount of whispering. I opened my eyes to see a dark and dingy metro station shrouded in darkness. The second I began moving, the whispers stopped. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing down the tunnels before disappearing completely. The sounds of wind filled the air as I turned around. A large tunnel lined with steel gratings sat in front of me. A long, seemingly endless set of tracks stretched into the darkness. I inhaled slowly, still feeling the pain from the last level's encounters as I looked around me. The metro station was dimly lit and smelled of mold and rot. A cold chill filled every tunnel, and a feeling of uneasiness filled the air around me. My heartbeat sped up slightly as the sounds of whispers started up again. I looked behind me to see a shadow dart into the darkness, my eyes only able to catch a glimpse of what it was. "Fuck. Who's there?" I choked out as feelings of fear and uneasiness crashed down on me. I stared into the corner I had seen the creature in and took a deep breath. "You know what? Fuck, just leave as soon as possible. That's what I've been doing, right?" I said to myself as I turned to face the tunnel. The sounds of wind rushing down the dark passageway filled my ears as a blast of cold air filled the entire metro station. I stumbled back as the wind almost knocked me to the ground and spun a full 180 degrees to look behind me. The wind continued down the tunnel, the sounds of quickly moving air sending chilling howls through the entire level. Man, I can't breathe. I'm sorry, guys. I might have to re-record because I'm anxious, actually. This one's a big one. It's about an hour-long read. It's about 12 pages, just so you know what you're getting into. And I'm getting into. Fuck, I'm gonna have to re-record tomorrow. I want to leave. I need to leave. This level isn't like the other ones, I said as I rubbed my palms together. Anxiety filling my entire being as I tried to warm myself up. I glanced around nervously, spotting a staircase in the distance leading down. "It's just a metro station. It can't be infinite, right?" I sighed. It might be like the others, though. I don't know. I don't know what to do, man, I said slowly as I stared at the staircase in the distance. My head pounded as a million Man, this is a deep read. This is what the chapters are from now on. They're long. They're long. This one level, 12 sublevels, about 13, 14 chapters. You guys are in for a treat this week and next week. I took a step forwards, the sound of my foot coming down on the concrete somehow amplifying itself as it echoed down the tunnels. I inhaled, trying to calm the feelings of uneasiness and fear that filled my entire being as I cautiously made my way down the dark concrete tunnel. It was cold. The sounds of fast-moving air reached my ears again as a powerful blast of wind pushed me forwards. I stumbled a few feet, almost losing my footing before grabbing onto an extremely rusty steel pole. I looked around, scanning the area for danger or other threats before slowly stepping away from the rusty support beam. I hate this place. Oh, fuck, I hate it so much. Jesus Christ, I said as I slowly began walking towards the staircase, my eyes scanning the darkness for threats. "My backpack!" I cried as I spun to face the place I woke up in. My backpack sat in the darkness, seeming to sit under a blanket of shadows as it laid on the concrete platform up ahead. "Fuck," I said anxiously as I began speed walking towards my supply bag, my eyes darting around as I moved, scanning for any more of those shadowy creatures that I walked in on. I inhaled before leaning down to grab my bag. A cold chill brushed over the back of my neck before sending chills through my entire body. I grabbed my bag instantly and ran as fast as I could for the staircase. The sounds of faint laughter filled the air as my gym shoes slapped the cold concrete. I whimpered in fear as the laughter grew louder before stopping in front of the stairwell. The sounds of fast-moving air brushed past me as I darted forwards. Again, long read. Sorry, I don't want to use AI. Just doing my best, guys, okay? This is a novel I spent 3 years writing. I just want to get it out in the world because publishing fucking sucks nowadays. The sound of fast-moving air brushed past me as I moved forwards, my feet swiftly moving down each step until I reached the bottom, slamming my body shoulder first into the metal bar that opened the door. I fell through the doorway with a thud as the large metal door slowly slammed shut behind me, locking itself into the mechanism with a loud bang. I took a deep breath and scrambled to my feet, slinging my backpack over my shoulder as I slowly stepped away from the door. The sounds of laughter had completely stopped and the air was slightly warmer. My body shook with fear as I stared at the closed door with a sense of uneasiness. "Let me leave, please," I whispered as I stepped back one last time before taking my eyes away from the door. I turned around to see a massive, coolly lit tunnel with smooth white tile walls. A line of dark green tiles stretched along the center of the wall, following the tunnel as it went into the far distance. I took a deep breath in and looked at the walls and ceiling. Thin, rectangular lights that gave off a cool blue glow filled the tunnels with a soft white light. I tried to relax, allowing my muscles to loosen up, as I tried to drop the feeling of uneasiness that engulfed me constantly. "This level is different. I need to be more careful," I said as I slowly began walking down the cold, brightly lit tunnel. It was warmer before, but the temperatures kept changing. I didn't know why. The sounds of my footsteps were quieter than they were when I was in the dark and ominous abandoned metro station area I started in. I glanced around, staring at the walls as I walked down the long, cold tile-lined tunnel. Towards the left turn in the distance. My head spun as anxiety fueled my inner thoughts. "What do I do? I've never been in a metro before," I said quietly as I turned the corner, stopping in front of a massive, white-tiled metro station. The lights buzzed, causing my brain to flash back to those horrible memories at the time I got here. The first day I got stuck in this place. How long ago was that? It had been at least a week. I slept when I had the time, ate when I had the food. I don't know where I am," I choked on my words, horrible memories of everything I had been through flooding my mind as I choked back tears. "I want to get out," I said softly as I looked around. A wave of cool air fell over me, causing my body to relax a bit as my thoughts dissipated. "Keep cool, stay calm and you'll have better chances," I said to myself as I began walking further into the brightly lit metro station. Advertisement posters written in an unidentifiable language lined the walls, seeming to advertise things inside this place like almond water and things from my reality. I took a deep breath in and began walking down the long, endless corridor that was this subway station. I glanced to the left to see a hound sifting through a trash bin that had been knocked over. I froze in fear and slowed my breathing as I slowly slid my backpack down my arm and onto the floor. The hound snorted before jolting its head in my direction. It growled before dashing forwards at me at insane speeds. I grabbed my bag by the left shoulder strap and dove to the right, causing the hound to just barely miss me and crash to the ground. It rolled before scrambling to its feet again, continuing its chase for its new prey. "Why is there always something?" I cried as I sprinted for the ledge of the platform, planning to lose the hound in the pit that held the train's rail system. I jumped off the concrete platform and hit the ground with a thump, making sure to bend my knees to avoid breaking my legs before kicking off, my shoes scraping the back of the wall as I kicked off the ground. The hound made a sound that sounded like a howl mixed with a human crying out in pain, sending chills through my entire body as the hound leapt off the platform and hit the ground running. I darted left, throwing my bag up and over the ledge and onto the platform before jumping up and landing on the ledge with 3/4 of my body hanging off the ground. I inhaled painfully as I kicked my feet, trying to kick off the wall to boost myself up as the sound of the hound's feet hitting the ground grew closer. "Please," I grunted as I used all my strength to pull myself up. The hound growled before jumping towards me, sinking its teeth into my legs, and my right calf exploded with incredible amounts of pain. I cried out in pain as I kicked outwards, my foot connecting with the hound's neck, sending it flying onto the tracks. It yelped as it hit the metal beam at the edge of the rail and rolled to a stop in the center of the chamber. Fresh blood dripped on my leg and soaked the right leg of my jeans as I struggled to kick up over the ledge. This is 19 pages, by the way. I try to read all these in one go. I'll stop interrupting. Sorry. The sounds of the hound's clawed paws kicking off the concrete filled my ears as the hound landed on my back, instantly digging its claws deep into my flesh before biting my shoulder hard, tearing back as it ripped the flesh off my body. I screamed in pain and rolled to the side, forgetting I was on the ledge for a moment as my fingers slipped off the platform. Tears filled my eyes as the hound continued to tear into my shoulder with its teeth, soaking my neck and arm in red blood. My fingers just barely hooked onto my bag's shoulder strap as I fell sideways off the ledge. The hound yelped as I landed on top of it, crushing its body into the concrete as my bag fell to the ground a few feet away. I hit the ground next, my body rolling off of the hound's limp body as I hit the concrete with my left shoulder before hitting the concrete wall to my right. Let's reread that. I hit the ground next, my body rolling off of the hound's limp body as I hit the concrete with my left shoulder before hitting the concrete wall to my right hard. I groaned in pain as my blood slowly soaked the ground near my shoulder, my eyes locking onto my bag as it lay a couple feet away. My chest burned as my head spun from the amount of blood I was losing. "This is it," I mumbled softly as my vision blurred in and out. I stared at my bag as the hound stirred next to me. I groaned softly as I began to roll onto my stomach. The hound shifted, kicking its legs as it regained consciousness. I groaned softly as I began crawling towards my bag. The concrete and dust covering the platform the rails laid upon scraped my skin as I left a trail of blood behind me. The hound growled as it began to wake up more, increasing the sense of urgency I had to get my bag and kill the hound. I groaned in pain as my fingers grazed the bag, showing me how close I was. "Please," I said softly as I painfully strained to reach the bag. The hound snorted as it slowly got to its feet, trying to remember what it was doing down here instead of up where it was. I exhaled painfully, alerting the hound of what it was doing here as it instantly charged at me. I mustered all the strength I could and gripped the handle of my bag as I swung, the bag full of various supplies connecting with the hound's face midair, sending it flying into the concrete wall with a loud and sickening crunch. Blackish blue blood poured onto the ground as the hound lay limp across from me, the life in its eyes fading as its jaw fell limp. Its thin strands of black hair had fallen over its grotesque face as it lay dead at the base of the wall. I gasped for air as my head spun. The pain in my shoulders grew unbearable as my vision filled with blurred spots of color. I fell backwards, my body going limp as it shut down, my head hitting the track's rail as it all went dark. Segment 2. The sounds of wind filled my ears as the cold breeze swept over my entire body, sending chills through my left side. I groaned in pain and opened my eyes slowly regaining my senses. My shoulders stung painfully as I began to remember what had happened. "The hound," I said as I instantly threw my gaze to the area the hound had laid after I hit it with my bag. The flesh-covered carcass of the hound laid in front of me, its bones stained with blackish blue blood. I gasped in shock and painfully shuffled back as far as I could away from the body. What happened? What the fuck?" I cried as I stared at the bloodied, flesh-covered skeleton in front of me. "Fuck, something else is here," I whispered as I began to look for my bag. I gasped as I spotted a giant brick-sized rat sifting through my supplies. I held my breath as I tried to determine whether or not it was dangerous before slowly getting to my feet. "Just get that bag. It's not that hard. It can't be that hard," I said as I let my shoulder hang limp to avoid mass pain. The rat chittered loudly, the sound piercing my ears and making me jump. The rat froze, its head still in the bag as I stared at it with pure shock. It was about the size of a large brick and was covered in dark, matte black fur. Its tail was about the length of a No. 2 pencil and was dark pink. It chittered loudly, its call causing more chills to go through my body. "It's just a rat," I said as I took a deep breath to calm myself. I took a step forward and reached for the bag, watching the rat carefully. The rat was completely still as my hand grew closer to the bag. I yelped as the rat shrieked loudly, piercing my ears as it darted away from the bag and towards my feet. I jumped up, barely avoiding its razor-sharp teeth as I stumbled forwards, looking behind me as it darted into the darkness. I inhaled deeply before grabbing my bag and looking inside. The stale bread I had was gone, along with multiple batteries. The med kit was covered in scratches and bite marks, and the roll of bandage I had was torn to shreds. "This stupid rat!" I said angrily as I tossed the shredded roll of medical gauze onto the tracks. The sounds of chittering grew closer as I once more froze in fear. "There's more?" I hissed as I struggled to avoid turning around. The sounds of hundreds of rats chittering filled the air as I spun around. About 100 sets of beady red eyes stared back at me from the darkness, waiting for me to move. I froze, staring at the horde in front of me as I held my bag in my left hand. I tried to breathe, but it caught in my throat as I watched the wall of eyes grow closer. The sounds of hundreds of these giant rats echoed off the walls of the subway station, floating down every tunnel as the horde continued to grow in front of me. "What the fuck? What do I do?" I jumped back as a death rat charged at me from the shadow-filled tunnel. I jumped up and grabbed the ledge as the rat clawed at my jeans. I kicked out, my shoe connecting with the rat's body with a crunch as my blow sent it flying onto the tracks. It rolled to a stop near the track's ledge before going limp. I groaned as I struggled to pull myself onto the ledge with my injury. The horde shrieked loudly, the sound sending a chilling wave. Damn, I cannot read tonight, bro. The horde shrieked loudly, the sound sending a wave of chills through my body as my ears rang. I yelped as the horde began to pour out of the tunnel, the massive dark gray rats seeming to swarm as a collection of every rat on the entire level. No, I already dealt with a hound, guys, I cried as I swung my bag over the ledge. My chest burned as I pulled my body over the concrete ledge and onto the metro station's main level. The death rats poured out of the dark tunnel as I stared at the massive entities in horror. I think I should leave. Now, I cried as the large, massive, deadly rodents scaled the walls and made their way onto the main platform. I sprinted as fast as I could forwards, the white tile walls and white lights causing my peripheral vision to become a blur of bright white. I cried out as the death rat jumped onto my back, sinking its teeth into my upper body, drawing fresh blood. I spun around, almost losing my footing as the death rat shrieked happily. The horde behind me filled the air with sounds of hundreds of bodies moving as a mass. The constant chittering and shrieks filling the tunnels was a deafening call of death. Fuck! I cried as I blindly groped around behind me with my left arm to get the death rat off of me. I grabbed the furry little bastard and ripped it from its perch on my back and threw it to the ground. It squealed in pain as its body crunched on the concrete, its tail writhing as it squirmed in pain before it scrambled to its feet and joined the horde again. I need to get out of here, I cried as my eyes scanned everything around me. I spotted a metal door in the distance, the single light above it flickering on and off as it appeared to signal me to go to it. I glanced behind me to see a death rat leaping from a large white pillar at my head. I ducked, causing the furry rodent to go flying over me before hitting the ground, rolling with a sickening crack. It shrieked in pain, angering the rest of the horde as they began to move closer and target me from all sides. Please, I just need to get to that door, I cried as the sounds of the horde filled the air as a deafening typhoon of shrieks and chatters. I kicked off the ground hard, the sounds of my heavy footfalls being drowned almost instantly by the massive shrieks and screeches coming from behind me. My eyes darted around, scanning for anything I could use to slow the entity horde behind me down, only to find nothing. Please just let me make it out, I cried as I darted left, barely making my way around a thick white pillar as I tried to leave as many obstacles behind as I could. A couple of death rats that had previously dove at me screeched with anger as they hit the pillars and bounced off, hitting the ground hard before getting swallowed by the quickly moving horde. I cried out as the death rat's sharp teeth connected with my leg, tearing into my right thigh as it shrieked and chittered in delight. I spun in a full circle in an attempt to shake the creature off before speeding up, moving my legs as fast as I could in an attempt to prevent it from feeding on my flesh. Get off! I screamed as another death rat leapt onto me, sinking its teeth into my waist as it shrieked with delight. I darted left, my feet sliding on the cold, slippery concrete as I lost traction, sending me past where I wanted to go. The door grew further away as I hit the ground hard, the horde screaming with glee as they watched their prey fall to the ground right in front of them. I laid on my stomach, dazed. Moments later, a death rat leapt onto me, shrieking happily as it dug its teeth into my left arm. I cried out in pain and grabbed it angrily, holding it tightly in my fist before throwing it at the wall with as much force as I could. The horde slowed as the death rat seemed to decide who got the feast on me first, the two that remained on my body continuing to feast as blood soaked the areas around my wounds. I have to get away from them, I groaned softly as I watched the horde in front of me with fear in my eyes, a feeling of dread falling over me like a blanket. The door to my escape laid about 10 feet away, seeming to taunt me with every flicker of the light presenting the exit of this station. I growled in pain and slowly got to my feet, causing the horde in front of me to shift and prepare to attack. I took a deep breath in, watching the horde slowly inch closer before I booked it. The death rat shrieked, the deafening noise piercing the air and shaking the walls. My feet slapped the concrete floor as the two death rats that had been feasting just moments before lost their grip and fell, hitting the ground with a subtle thump before joining the horde again. I slung my backpack over my shoulder, securing it the best I could as I slammed into the exit door with full force, all of my weight crashing into the pushing mechanism as the door swung open. I fell through the doorway and instantly got to my feet, slamming into the door as the horde shrieked angrily as its prey went out of sight. The door slammed shut, shaking the walls as death rats slammed into the closed door with full force, clawing at the steel as they hissed and screamed with anger and frustration. I have to get as far away from them as I can, I said to myself sternly as I slid the lock down, hoping the door would keep them at bay for a while. Exit, I need an exit, it's too dangerous here. My heart pounded in my chest as the sounds of the entity horde sounded behind me, muffled by the steel door that currently kept them at bay. I looked around before walking down the dimly lit transport tunnel. Dust filled my nose as I slung my bag over my shoulder and set it on the ground. Almond water, bandage, I said as I tentatively touched my open wound on my arm. A flashlight, maybe some food if they didn't eat it all. My head spun as my heart continued to race with a boost of adrenaline. I grabbed the medical kit and popped the latch open, picking up the fresh roll of gauze before setting the med kit on the ground next to my backpack. I carefully unraveled the gauze and wrapped it around the wounded area on my arm. The exposed skin and flesh burned as the chemicals in the gauze cleaned out the bacteria currently infesting an open and vulnerable gash in my body. I repeated the same thing for the wounds on my leg, sighing as I realized there was nothing I could do for the bite marks and scratches on my back. Stupid rats, I muttered as I put what was left of the gauze back in the medical kit. I gently put the medical kit back in the backpack so I wouldn't lose it and grabbed the container of almond water. I unscrewed the lid and brought the bottle to my lips, hesitant to drink a liquid I found in a place that was constantly trying to kill me before taking a swig of the cool, refreshing liquid. My body relaxed a bit as I finished off the rest of the sweet and cold liquid. Even though this stuff could kill me someday, I gotta admit it's really good, I said happily. I closed the bottle before setting it in the bag, hoping I could refill it at some point one day. I grabbed the flashlight from the bottom of the second compartment and clicked the power button. It flickered a bit before powering on fully. For a moment I had forgotten about the death rats. I need batteries. There doesn't seem to be any supplies on this level, but hopefully when I get out of here I can find some, I said as I set the flashlight next to me on the ground, knowing that I might need it at some point later on. I searched through the bag for anything I could eat, only to find nothing. Fucking rats. I'm gonna starve, I said angrily as I listened to the sounds of the horde as they worked to destroy the steel door, keeping them from their current prey. I smiled at the thought of them all starving to death because I refused to let them kill me and zip the bag shut, securing everything within. I looked around, scanning for threats or hints of escape before standing up. I slung the bag over my shoulder and adjusted both straps so I could avoid any pain caused by the leather rubbing against my wounds. I held the flashlight tightly in my right hand and began walking calmly down the corridor I was in. There was definitely something off about this level, I said as I looked up at the ceiling while walking, staring at the rusted metal bars that supported the lights before returning my gaze to what was in front of me. Those rats, they acted differently, I said to myself as I scanned the walls as I walked, my eyes following the green tile line in the center as it stretched down the corridor and into the distance. This place is way creepy, though. I actually hate it, I said as I glanced up at the small rectangular light fixture as it flickered before returning to normal. A cold breeze brushed past me, causing fear to rise up again as I turned around. The door I had escaped the death rats with was bent and covered in small holes and scratch lines. Fuck. Dude, that's solid steel. If they get out, I'm dead, I said sternly, trying to focus on managing my sanity and avoiding the feelings of fear and danger this place seemed to give off. The gash in my shoulder tingled as I turned back around, forgetting the cold breeze that I had turned around for as I began to walk slightly faster down the white tile hallway. Still can't breathe. You know, even though this place is always trying to kill you, it's honestly pretty cool, I said as I stared at the pristine white tiles that lined the wall. The lights above me flickered as a loud bang sounded from behind me, making me jump. That door won't hold much longer, I said nervously as I glanced behind me. Multiple death rats clawed at the floor as they tried to squeeze through the gap in the door and the door frame. Yeah, it's definitely time to leave, I said as I began to run. My backpack bounced on my back as I ran, the materials inside becoming jumbled and shaken as I sprinted as fast as I could away from the door, knowing it wouldn't hold the angry horde of rats much longer. How long is this hallway? I cried as I stared down the endless line in front of me. Another bang echoed down the hallway, reaching my ears as it continued to float down the corridor ahead. I glanced behind me, the door just barely being visible now as I gained as much distance between me and the horde of death as I could. I'm screwed. I'm actually fucking screwed. What the I said as I gasped for air. My lungs burned as my legs grew sore, my feet beginning to grow heavy as I pushed my body to its limits. My head began to spin as my heart pounded furiously in my chest. I began to struggle breathing as my throat went dry. Please, fuck, I don't want to die here. And this level is different. I might not have more than one life, I cried as my chest burned painfully. My vision began to blur as I began to lose consciousness. I'm so lightheaded with that. A loud bang sounded from behind me as the air filled with the shrieks of the horde. The sound of the steel door scraping against the floor as the horde poured over it filled the corridor as I struggled to run faster. My lungs screamed as my vision became a blur. I glanced behind me to see a writhing mass of gray fur and red eyes quickly making its way through the hallway as it pursued its prey. I can't stop, I cried as I took a painful deep breath. The horde... Whoa. Hoarders? The horde's shrieks of rage and hunger echoed through the corridor, sending chills through my body as it pierced my ears. They won't stop, I cried as I began to slow down. My body grew weary and fatigued as I begged myself to go further. My body began to grow weak as I stumbled, starting to trip over my own feet as the sounds of the horde grew louder. I have to hide, I said weakly as I pushed further down the hall. A glimmer of hope rose in my mind as I spotted a T-shaped intersection up ahead. The hallways branch off, I gasped as I used the glimmer of hope to push for the split in the hallway. I began to regain my confidence as I glanced behind me, a sense of dread slamming into me like a city bus as I watched the horde shriek with excitement. I returned my gaze to what was in front of me and darted down the left corridor. My lungs begged for me to stop as I sprinted down the new path that laid in front of me. The chitters and shrieks of the horde grew quieter as I spotted a set of double doors in the distance. My only chance of escape is to hide, I said to myself as I panted, my body shaking as it begged for oxygen. I glanced behind me, spotting the front of the horde as it approached the intersection behind me. That horde is a threat, and the call of the horde they keep doing will attract even deadlier problems, I said confidently as I faced the double doors again. The horde shrieked as I pushed through the doors and into the staircase leading down to another station area. The horde shrieked in frustration as the double doors slammed shut behind me, giving me one chance of survival as the sound alerted the horde of my location. I'm going to reread that. The horde shrieked in frustration as the double doors slammed shut behind me, giving me only one chance of survival as the sound alerted the horde of my immediate location. It's do or die, I said to myself with a deep breath as I turned away from the double doors and faced the staircase ahead. Let's do this, I said as I adjusted my backpack and began deciding how I was going to survive this next challenge. Chapter 15. Why you should never trust death rats in the backrooms. The call of the horde. I quickly made my way down the stairs and burst through the second set of double doors at the bottom of the stairwell. I need to hide, now, I said sternly as the steel double doors slammed shut behind me. The shrieks and chatters of the horde grew quiet as I gained incredible distance between me and the horde of death rats. I glanced around nervously, realizing I was in another dingy and run-down, crumbling metro station, one that was similar to the one I started this mess in. Don't hesitate. Hide, I said as I reminded myself of what I had to do at the moment. The air was cold, chilling me to the bone as goosebumps spread across my arms and legs. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as an overwhelming feeling of danger and oncoming death hit me like a brick. I glanced around nervously before snapping out of it as the sounds of the horde slamming through the steel double doors echoed down the staircase and throughout the abandoned metro station. The doors slid down the staircase with a series of deafening bangs and crashes before slamming into the second set of double doors with a loud thud. They're here, I said as I ran as fast as I could towards a small room that looked like a control station for trains and the speaker systems that announced when trains were coming and leaving next. I burst through the aged and rotting wooden door and shut it behind me, turning the lock before climbing onto the desk. The shrieks of the hungry swarm of death filled the air as the horde dispersed, spreading out to search for their suddenly missing meal. I inhaled before climbing onto a sturdy shelf that was close to a large bookcase. Please hold, I said quietly as I climbed into the cramped space and laid on my stomach, using my arms to push myself back deeper into the shadows as the hundreds of singular death rats searching the station became visible through the small glass window facing the station. My breath caught in my lungs as a death rat suddenly darted its gaze directly at me. It chittered loudly, its eyes pointed directly at me as it watched the shadows I was hiding in. It couldn't have seen me, I hissed as I shifted my position. Fear began to crush down on me as the hundreds of death rats began chittering and shrieking, gathering together as they swarmed into one giant mass of writhing gray fur and razor-sharp teeth. It saw me, I cried as I began to frantically try and crawl out of the cramped space I was in. The horde shrieked with excitement as they quickly made their way to my location. Adrenaline shot through my blood as I squeezed out of the small gap, and fell hands first onto the desk. Old yellowed papers and random scrap metal fell to the floor as I fell onto the desk before rolling to the floor again. Damn, I said floor a lot. Old yellowed papers and random scrap metal fell to the floor as I fell onto the desk before rolling to the floor. The air was knocked out of me for a moment as I scrambled to my feet. The backpack on my back dug into my hips as I faced the horde, the only thing separating me and death being a thin glass pane. Fuck. I'm cornered, I choked as I watched the horde writhe and squirm in one place, as if they were waiting for me to make the first move. The air around me grew heavy as my glimmer of hope quickly... Damn. Guys, it's 11 o'clock at night. Please forgive me. The air around me grew heavy as my glimmer of hope shattered completely as the horde shrieks pierced the air. The glass cracked under the pressure given off by the call of the horde, seeming to be the cue for the swarm to attack. My heart jumped as the horde surged forwards, quickly advancing on the now weakened glass. I can't do anything, I choked as I watched the distance between the horde and the window quickly grow smaller. My eyes darted to the door as the shrieks of glee and pride exploded from the horde as it smashed into the glass. I took that as my cue and ran at the door with all I had. My body hit the rotting wood with full force, shattering the door into hundreds of wooden splinters as the horde filled the room behind me. The swarm of death rats shrieked in frustration as I sprinted through the remains of the door and towards the railway line that head to the tunnels. I can't stop, I said nervously as the sound of the enemy horde rushing towards me filled my ears. I refused to look behind me as my feet slapped the cold concrete platform. The tunnel in the distance was massive and shrouded in a black void of shadows. It's the only way out, I said as I tried to reassure myself that the tunnel wasn't the only threat at the moment. The sounds of clawed feet scraping concrete grew amplified as the horde closed the distance between itself and me. It's now or never, I said sternly as I changed direction and began running towards an area with more obstacles that still led to the tunnels. The horde shrieked with frustration as its prey continued to cause trouble in exchange for its meal. Now, I cried as I darted right, pushing over a large metal trash can behind me to slow the oncoming swarm. The horde of death rats shrieked angrily as they poured over the trash can, the sounds of metal on concrete being swallowed by the call of the horde. I ran as fast as I could, darting left and right as various death rats leapt at me, missing as I dodged their attacks. I can make it! I cried as I jumped over the ledge, landing inside the area the train tracks laid upon. The horde of death rats slowed as they poured over the ledge, not expecting to have to make their way down a 5-foot drop. I grabbed my flashlight from my back pocket and gripped it tightly as I approached the pitch-black tunnel. The shrieks and chitters of the swarm of entities behind me echoed through the tunnel as I continued to run. I can't stop, I said as I gasped for air. My lungs burned as my legs grew weak and sore. My heart pounded furiously as I glanced behind me, my eyes meeting those of a death rat that had leapt off the waiting platform at my head. I just barely avoided it, clawing my eyes out as I ducked, my feet stumbling over the track as the death rat squeaked in pain as it hit the ground rolling. I regained my balance as I reached the entrance of the tunnel. The horde of death rats began to slow as I sprinted out of the station and into the darkness of the tunnel ahead. Why are they stopping? I thought to myself as my vision completely disappeared, the tunnel completely shrouding everything in a void of darkness. I watched the horde of death rats behind me as they waited at the base of the tunnel, as if they knew something I didn't. I began to grow uneasy as the darkness began to swallow me up entirely. I ran until I couldn't see the horde behind me and slowed to a stop. Something isn't right, I said to myself as I stood in the pitch-black tunnel in silence. A sense of danger filled my entire being as I grabbed my flashlight and flicked the power switch. A beam of light shot out into the darkness, revealing the reason the death rat had stopped at the entrance of this death trap. Chapter 16. Figures in the Dark. The main reason you should never go into dark tunnels in the Backrooms. My flashlight beam shone directly onto a grotesque and rotting, fleshy creature made completely out of exposed human flesh. My scream of pure terror pierced the air as I stumbled backwards, tripping over the tracks as I lost my footing. I landed ass first on the concrete as my flashlight fell from my hands. My heart raced as my breathing grew hasty and shallow. The flashlight flickered before powering off. Holy fuck! What the fuck was that thing? I cried as I blindly groped around for my flashlight. My hands brushed the cool metal handle of my only light source as I grabbed it instantly, turning it on as fast as I could. The air grew colder as I quickly got to my feet. I can't go back. That horde of death rats will kill me. I have to keep going, I said as I took a deep breath. The temperatures around me were close to freezing as I stumbled through the dark, trying to keep my flashlight beam as low as possible as I cautiously made my way down the tunnel. The sounds of faint laughter sent chills to my entire body as I looked up. My flashlight flickered furiously as I locked eyes with a horrifying creature made up of 2 glowing white eyes and a massive razor-sharp teeth-filled smile. My breath caught in my throat as I froze. The creature seemed to be watching my every movement as I remained as still as possible. The faint sounds of laughter grew louder as the chilling smiling face inched closer. I moved my flashlight slightly to try and get a better look at the creature, shifting my footing as I slowly took a step back. It's just watching me, I whispered to myself, the mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth that could tear into me at any moment sent a wave of paranoia through my soul. I took a deep breath before clicking off my flashlight. The sounds of laughter cut off instantly as the smiler inched closer. Its eyes now locked on me. Fuck, I said softly as fear filled my voice. My heart raced as my eyes strained to see in the darkness. The smiler slowly crept closer as I slowly stepped back. The sounds of trains filled the air as a powerful gust of wind shot down the tunnel, pushing me back. The laughter instantly grew deafeningly loud as the smiler lunged at me. I darted to the side and began running as fast as I could. The sounds of laughter filled the tunnel as the smiler gained on me. The sounds of my feet slapping the concrete. The sounds of my Damn, I need to go to bed. It's 12 o'clock at night, bro. The sounds of my feet slapping the concrete as I ran echoed down the tunnel as I ran as fast as I could through the darkness. The smiler lunged at me again, the aura of freezing cold air around it brushing the back of my neck. I took a deep breath and jumped to the side, causing the smiler to charge past me before realizing its prey was now behind it. I instantly began to run over the tracks to the other side of the tunnel as death continued to chase me through the darkness. My head spun as my eyes burned, my mind struggling to see through the blanket of darkness all around me. I have to lose it, I sludged myself as I glanced behind me. The smiler was hot on my heels as its laughter echoed down the tunnel. I gasped for air as my chest burned, my body craving fresh oxygen and a rest break as I pushed myself to run as fast as I could. My stamina began to run low as I listened to the sounds of death remain close behind me. My eyes strained to see what was ahead of me as I struggled to see an end to the tunnel or a way out. The smiler lunged at me again, its teeth clipping the back of my legs. It slowed down, thinking it had caught me. I pushed further as I realized I had a small advantage at the moment and darted over the tracks back to the left side. The smiler charged as it began to grow angry at its current prey, reaching speeds I hadn't seen yet. It's faster, I choked as I just barely dodged an attack from the bringer of death. My lungs screamed as my heart pounded furiously in my chest. My feet kicked off as my legs pumped furiously to push me forwards. The smell of rot and death filled the air as I glanced behind me. The smiler had stopped and began retreating as I continued to run forwards. A wave of relief crashed over me, quickly followed by a wave of paranoia. What is it retreating from? I thought to myself as I began to slow down. I gripped my flashlight tightly as I finally flicked it on, revealing a massive, lanky, shadowy figure that was hidden in the shadows. Fuck, I exhaled as I stumbled backwards, almost dropping my flashlight as the 12-foot shadow began to clamber forwards. Its long, skinny arms almost touched the ground. Its head was a small oval that was microscopic compared to the rest of its body. What? I choked as I forgot to react. As I forgot how to react, the hair on the back of my neck stood up as goosebumps spread along my arms and legs. The air was freezing as the unidentifiable creature stumbled towards me. Death crept closer as I remained paralyzed with fear. Run, I stammered as I began to move. My flashlight beam flickered furiously as the creature grew closer. The smell of rot and death filled the air as I stumbled back. Run, I said with more urgency. My body refused to respond as death slowly inched closer. Run, I stammered as my legs went numb. A monotonous, low growl filled the air as the tall, lanky entity began to reach towards me. My head spun as my mind exploded with thoughts. My legs sprang into action as I kicked off the ground, running past the unidentifiable bringer of death as it swung its arms out in an attempt to hit me. I ducked, barely avoiding being knocked to the ground as the entity let off a loud and chilling wail. Chills filled my entire being as I ran as fast as I could away from the 12-foot-tall demon behind me. I need to leave this level now, I said as I shined my flashlight beam down the tunnel. The sounds of running water filled the air as the sounds of my footfalls echoed down the tunnel. My eyes followed the shaky white ray of the flashlight as it exposed glimpses of the rusty track, the cracking concrete, the rotting brick walls, and the carcasses of hundreds of wanderers and entities that didn't make it out. The smell of rotting flesh filled the air as I slowed to a stop and looked around. Another one? I hissed as I spun around, shining my flashlight in every direction as I searched for the source of the smell of death. My eyes widened as I came face to face with a large, shadowy creature made of hundreds of tentacles and limbs as it reached directly for me. I dodged the first tentacle, not being so lucky with the second one as it burned my flesh the moment it grazed my shoulder. I cried out in pain and began running, trying to escape as the tentacles reached out to grab me. I shined my flashlight along the walls, hoping to find some sort of door or escape, only to find nothing. The smell of rotting flesh filled my nose as the burn on my shoulder throbbed. Is that my flesh? I said fearfully as I glanced behind me. I just barely dodged another tentacle before the entire creature vanished completely. I continued to run down the tunnel, hoping it would end at some point soon as my shoulder pulsed and throbbed. My eyes followed the flashlight beam as I tried to ignore the smell of burnt, rotting flesh that my shoulder gave off. I can't let the figures in the dark touch me. I said as the pain in my shoulder worsened. I glanced behind me to see if I was being followed before returning my gaze to the front. A large gust of wind raced down the tunnel, followed by the sounds of trains as I continued on. The sounds of my feet hitting the ground echoed down the tunnel and through the tunnel as my breathing grew shallow. I need medical help, I groaned as my shoulder throbbed painfully. My head pounded with a migraine as I struggled to see what was ahead of me. My flashlight flickered a few times, causing me to slow down and stop in the middle of the tracks. How many are there? I choked as I looked around. The hair on the back of my neck stood up straight as death brushed past me, sending a wave of chills through my body. The light. It has to be attracting them somehow, I said as I stared down at the flashlight in my hands. I hesitated before clicking it off, bathing me in my surroundings in darkness. The sounds of movement stopped as I stayed as still as possible. The stench of death slowly disappeared as I took a shaky breath in. I have to get out of these tunnels, I said as I looked around. My eyes struggled to see in the darkness as I strained to see what was around me. I began walking forwards, slowly making my way down the tunnel as I tried to ignore the pain in my shoulder. I began walking in silence as I slowly made my way through the tunnels to level 59, the one I was in now being level 835 in the newer Backrooms level database. Little did I know that I keep ruining suspense. I'm so sorry. Little did I know what was hiding deep in the shadows around me. Chapter 17, A Pack of Hounds. Why you should never trust a single hound that looks alone in the backrooms. I walked in silence, surrounded by complete darkness as I listened for sounds of movement and possible threats. My head hurt as my eyes slowly started getting used to the darkness. I need food and water so bad. I said softly as I licked my lips, trying to avoid them getting even more chapped as I grew dehydrated. I slowed to a stop and removed my backpack, gently setting it down on the ground as I opened it up. "Do I?" I said to myself as I sifted through scraps and empty bottles of almond water. "Fucking nothing," I said with a sigh as I put the flashlight back inside the backpack, knowing it was too dangerous to use it here. "I need to get out of here," I said as I zipped up the backpack and got to my feet. I slung the bag over my shoulder, the fresh wound having gone completely numb as the burns and aches from bacteria from the entity steadily killed the nerves in that area of my arm. I looked around before continuing to walk slowly through the darkness, gathering my thoughts as I listened for entities. "This place is crazy," I said to myself as I stared into the blanket of shadows in front of me. "It's like everything in this place is designed to kill whoever comes here. It's not like you can leave, either. I don't know how long I've been here, but it has definitely been at least 48 hours by now, maybe even more," I said as I talked to myself, surrounded by death and darkness as the symptoms of isolation enveloped me. There's so much stuff here. Death rats, party dudes, creepy figures in the shadows, those smiler thingies, that weird rod creature with the camera head, those giant moths and those weird hounds. It all just wants to just kill you, I said as hundreds of memories and flashbacks of everything I had been through so far flooded my mind. But there's good stuff, too, some of it at least. All of these levels, I guess, are so cool and mysterious. They all have so much to explore and do, and even though most of the ones I've been in tried or successfully killed me, I said as a flashback of level fun, pipe dreams, and the very first level I started in hit me like a train. I looked around, realizing I had zoned out as I saw I was still surrounded by complete darkness. "This level, for example," I said as I began to walk forwards again. "There's so many areas to explore and so much cool stuff to look at, but it's almost always trying to kill me. It's all different stuff, too. It's never the same," I said as I remembered the 3 different types of stations I had experienced so far. "The level seems massive, though, especially these tunnels," I said quietly as I stared ahead, walking in silence for a moment as my body grew more and more fatigued. "There has to be a way out, though. Every level I've been to had a way out," I said as I began looking around, struggling to see in the darkness that surrounded me. "If this level is like, I don't know, a giant series of train tunnels and underground stations, maybe the way out of here is up. Or maybe there's a special tunnel or door that you go through to escape," I said as I began to drown in my thoughts. "Once I reach the end of this tunnel, I'll find out what my options are," I said as I maintained my calm and cautious walk through the shadows. "I know there are stations in this place," I said as I broke the minute-long pause of silence. "Maybe one of them leads to the surface." I swallowed. A glimmer of hope rose in the far corners of my mind as the ideas that the stations held my way out of this place surfaced immediately. "I need to get to the stations. These tunnels are just full of death," I said as I began to run. My backpack bounced off of my butt as my legs pumped furiously, my heart pounding in my chest as my lungs began to burn again. I was pretty out of shape. The sounds of snarling echoed down the tunnel as I realized I wasn't alone anymore. The outlines of 2 hounds appeared to my left as I ran past them. "It's always something," I muttered as I began to run as fast as I could. The 2 hounds quickly followed behind me as I sprinted down the tunnels through the dark. My chest burned as my head spun, my eyes struggling to adjust as the darkness became a blur. The sounds of trains filled the tunnels as my feet slapped the concrete, the hounds snarling as they chased their current victim. I jumped over the tracks, my heel clipping the edge of the rail as I stumbled forwards. I kicked off the ground and regained my balance as the 2 hounds behind me slowed, struggling to run over the rails as they pursued their prey. "I have to get out of this tunnel," I cried as the hounds snarled and barked behind me. The faint sounds of whispering filled the air around me as the hounds closed the gap between them and their prey. I glanced behind me to see the 2 hounds were quickly gaining. "They're too fast!" I cried as I darted back over the rails. The hounds snarled as they leapt at my feet, leaping over the track, barely avoiding getting stuck again as they grew more frustrated with their prey. "They're getting smarter," I realized as I said as I realized the severity of the current situation. The hounds snarled angrily as I spotted something in the distance. A faint yellow glow shined through the window of a faraway door. "Oh, fuck. I need to get to that door, I said confidently as I began running as fast as I possibly could. The door began to grow closer as the sounds of the pack of hounds behind me grew louder. I glanced over my shoulder to see a third hound had joined the chase, running faster than the other two. How many of these weird dogs are there down here? I cried as the sounds of howls and barks echoed through the tunnel into the darkness. My lungs burned as the backpack bounced on my back, digging into my spine as I furiously pumped my legs. Pain shot through my thighs. One of the hounds sunk its teeth deep into my calf. What? Pain shot through my thighs. One of the hounds sunk its teeth deep into my leg. I glanced behind me to see they had closed the gap and were charging at me on all sides. Get off! I cried as the second hound dug its claws into my right arm. I screamed in pain before spinning a full 360 degrees, causing the hounds to dart outwards as they avoided what appeared to be an attack. I took the chance and began sprinting through the opening in the pack of... it's 7 minutes before stuttering. Goddamn. I took the chance and began sprinting through the opening in the pack of snarling, hungry hounds. The hounds barked loudly, the sounds of their cries traveling down the tunnel as the pack of 3 began pursuing close behind once more. The door is right there, I cried as a set of double steel doors came into view. I glanced behind me to see the hounds had begun gaining on me once again, growing closer by the second. I hesitated before stopping in my tracks, facing the hounds directly. They snarled with excitement as their prey finally stopped. I stared at what looked like to be the leader directly in the eyes as I let out an ear-splitting scream, the shriek exploding through my throat as it became amplifying. That should say amplified. You know what? I'm going to fix that while I'm reading it. As it became amplified with the echoes of the tunnel. The hounds froze, scrambling backwards as a deafeningly loud sound shocked them to their core. I jumped forwards, causing 2 of the hounds to dart back, running into the darkness. The leader of the pack stayed, standing its ground. I maintained eye contact before whipping around, sprinting for the door. The lead hound growled before barking loudly, telling the other 2 that ran away to initiate the hunt again as it began charging after me. Leave me alone! I screamed as I glanced behind me. The 2 hounds that had run away began emerging from the darkness, the outlines of the creatures' bodies growing bolder through the shadows. My chest heaved as I closed in on the door. The solid steel wall with a push mechanism and solid glass window laid only a few 20 feet away. The lead hound snarled angrily before making a terrifying bark that sounded like a human being killed mixed with the dog's cries of pain. I glanced behind me to see the lead hound changing direction, taking a path that would cut in front of mine. Fucking hell. I have to lose these things, I said as I turned around, dodging the other 2 hounds as they skidded to a stop, digging their clawed feet into the concrete as they changed the direction almost immediately. My head spun as my body grew more tired than before, my legs beginning to hurt as they grew weaker and sore. I darted left before turning 90 degrees, facing the 2 hounds again as the lead hound charged directly at me from the only way around the 2 others. I have to charge through them, I choked as I watched the 2 hounds charge towards me from my left while the leader of the pack charged my right. I hesitated before sprinting at full speed at the gap between the leader and its servants, dodging razor-sharp teeth and claws as the hounds snarled angrily. The leader growled before perfectly arcing the corner, maintaining its speed as it charged again. I kicked my legs, glancing behind me as the leader of the pack closed in on me. Fuck you! I cried as I slowed down, taking my backpack from my back as I swung it as hard as I could at the lead hound's head. The leather bag connected with the hound's neck with a crunch, sending it crashing into the concrete with a sickening thud. Its body rolling to a stop near the tracks as I turned to face forwards, leaving the lead hound limp on the rails behind me. I knew it wasn't going to stay unconscious for long. The other 2 aren't going to be too happy about that, I said to myself as I quickly approached a set of metal doors. I glanced behind me, looking for the other 2 hounds as they slowed down, stopping in front of the set of steel doors. The bright, warm light coming through the windows caused my vision to blur as I turned back around and quickly made my way through the doors, shutting them behind me. The sounds of the lock clicking shut echoed through the warmly lit hallway I was in. Where did the other 2 I was cut off as the glass window on the door behind me exploded, shattering as glass shards flew out from the window frame. I screamed and turned around, adrenaline shooting through my blood as one of the hounds clawed its way through the now broken window. It snarled and growled, gnashing its teeth angrily as it began to squeeze its way through. The door shook violently as the second one rammed into it repeatedly, shaking the set of steel doors as a visible indent began to appear. They're getting through? I choked as the hound crawling through the window began clawing at the door, its body halfway through the small rectangle that once held a pane of glass. I had no idea how this thing was getting through. The second hound howled as it rammed into the door again, this time bending the lock as the door strained to remain in their frame. I have to leave right now, I said as I snapped out of it. I adjusted my backpack before turning around, sprinting down the warmly lit tunnel as the pale white tile walls became a blur. The hounds howled and barked angrily as the doors kept them at bay. I glanced behind me as the doors burst open, metal shrapnel exploding outwards as the two hounds burst through the doorway and began charging down the hall. "They don't stop!" I cried as I began running as fast as I could. Sorry, I had to take a breath. A set of double doors laid at the end of the hallway, a set of wooden boards nailed over the small, square windows preventing any visibility as to what was beyond those doors. 2 other hallways branched off in both directions, providing 2 more hallways to run down. The sounds of snarls and barks echoed off the walls as the 2 hounds pursued the one who killed a member of their pack. I didn't know I killed it, though. I just felt it was unconscious. They believed so, though. I glanced behind me to see the hounds quickly gaining on me, their eyes locked on me with a thirst for my flesh. "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop or die until they do so." Sorry. "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop until I die or they do." Damn, I can't read. I'm sorry. I'm reading that correctly. I'm trying my best. I don't want to use AI to read this shit, so... "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop until they die or I do," I said as feelings of paranoia and dread began to set in. The hounds continued to gain on me as their thirst for the kill gave them the strength they needed to continue the chase. "I have to lose them," I said sternly as I observed my surroundings while I ran. The walls began to show mold and rot as the air grew thicker. "I'm entering a new area. Maybe I can lose them in one of these hallways," I said as I glanced behind me. The hounds had slowed down a bit, beginning to show signs of fear for something up ahead. "I guess they just don't want to go down this way," I said as feelings of hope crushed any sense of caution or paranoia I had left. That should say or, not of. I'm going to fix that because I'm reading this in real time and this is the audio revision. So blah, 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 blah. I'm going to shut up now. I slowed to a stop and watched as the hounds whimpered and growled in my direction. "Not so powerful now, are you?" I cried as I watched the hounds cry out in fear, seeming to wail in anguish and pain as they turned around and ran back down the hallway. I smiled to myself and turned to face the doors up ahead. Well, I guess I lucked out. I slowly walked up to the door and tried to look through the rotting wooden boards that had been nailed over the window. If this is a train system level with underground metro type stuff, why would one of these doors be locked and boarded up? I said as I began to look around for something to remove the boards with. I glanced at the rotting wood for a second. You're not 5 feet tall, bro. You don't need to look up. I glanced at the rotting wood for a second before I hesitantly grabbed it with both hands, almost gagging at the rotting's decayed planks before... I really should stop doing these all in one go, bro. Almost gagging as the rotting, decayed planks pressed against my skin. "This has to be an exit if it's blocked off," I said as I slowly began pulling off each of the wooden planks with my bare hands. The stench of rotting logs and rusted metal filled my nose as I slowly unblocked the window and locking mechanism. Damn, I want to play Minecraft Skyblock. I'm actually going to do that after this recording while the shit's uploading. I dropped the last wooden piece onto the ground and stared at the area with the window in awe. It's wrong! I'm gonna just keep going with it at this point. It's not even worth it. I dropped the last wooden piece onto the ground and stared at the area within the window with awe. A massive brownish-orange colored train tunnel lay beyond the door, the warm orange lights giving off a feeling of relief and security. I hesitated, my mind telling me not to trust it before opening the door and walking into the biggest tunnel I'd found at the Backways. I'm not even gonna say anything. Oh, yeah, Chapter 18 releases tomorrow, by the way. For the full compilation, literally the next second. Here you go. Chapter 18, The Tunnels of the Backways. Why you should never trust the back tunnels of Level 59. I stood on the dark, orange-colored stone platform as the double doors slammed shut behind me, the loud slam echoing down the tunnel before vanishing into the distance. "Holy shit," I said as I stared at the tunnel in awe. Large mining system-style lights at the bowl-shaped top lined the top of the ceiling. The lighting and supports being held up by a maze of massive steel pipes and panels. My eyes explored the tunnel system, admiring the dark orange stone and the smooth platforms that made up the tunnel. My nose scrunched up as the overpowering scent of rotting metal, decaying wood, mold, and rotting flesh filled the air. I choked back a vomit as I took a step back. The overpowering odors telling me I shouldn't be here. "This place reeks of death and decay," I said as my eyes ran along the rusting metal tracks that stretched into the distance. The air was close to freezing, and some areas felt warmer and colder than others. "It all feels off," I said as I began to turn around, wanting to leave as an overpowering weight of fear and uneasiness began to crush down on me. I now realized why the hounds ran away. I grabbed the door handle and pulled, my heart and hope sinking as the door jammed before closing again. "It's jammed," I choked as I stared through the glass window. The smell of death slowly trickled in the area around me as I focused on the door. Paranoia and panic rose as I shook the door handles frantically. "Let me out! I don't want to be here!" I screamed as my voice quickly traveled down the warmly lit tunnels behind me. My fingers slipped off of the door handles as the feeling of sadness crashed down on me. "Please," I said softly as I stared through the small square window at the mess of wooden boards on the floor. The boards I had removed to see what was behind these very doors. "How did it even get jammed?" I said angrily as I kicked the steel door hard, wincing as pain shot up my leg. "It was working perfectly fine just a moment or so ago," I said as I peered through the window at the handles on the other side. The locking mechanism on the other side was loose, having broken when the door slammed shut. "Stupid door," I muttered as I turned to face the seemingly infinite tunnel ahead. My heart began to race as I spotted an entity I had never seen before. The creature had the appearance and figure of a human, and appeared to be aimlessly wandering around about 40 feet from where I stood. It was tall, and seemed to take the appearance of some sort of SCP. Its skin was pale and a sickly yellow, and its eyes were white and sunken in. Its skin seemed to be covered with millions of microscopic bumps. "What the hell is that thing?" I said as I watched it wander aimlessly near the far wall. The subtle sound of humming reached my ears, causing me to look around. I grew nervous before staring at the mysterious tall humanoid creature again. "Is that thing making that noise? Is that a human that got stuck here?" My eyes darted around the tunnel, scanning for any other threats before I decided to get more information on this creature. "It looks like it's not angry at me yet," I said nervously as I watched it slowly wander closer, not seeing me yet as it hummed and whistled randomly. I watched as the loud sounds of trains blasted through the tunnel, a large gust of wind crashing into me, knocking me back into the doors and onto the ground. I groaned in pain as the creature looked around, trying to find the location of the deafening slam my body gave off when I hit the door. I waited a minute to settle the pain that was shooting through every nerve in my body before getting to my feet. The tall, humanoid-like creature had locked its eyes in my direction, making a chilling clicking noise before rushing at me. "Shit," I said as I darted right, trying to go the other direction. The sounds of humming and whistling continued to echo off the walls as the creature quickly gained on me. The smell of death and rotting skin filled the air as my feet slapped the dark orange rock platform, the sounds of my footfalls echoing through the tunnels. The pale yellow creature had began to quickly close the gap as it ran at top speeds of miles. Sorry, I made it 5 minutes in before stuttering. Let's go. New record. The pale yellow creature began to cloak. Let's read it slowly, guys. This is like when you read at school and everyone's eyes are on you, but I'm doing this at 11 o'clock at night running off of 2 monsters and 3 chapters being recorded in the past hour. The pale yellow creature began to quickly close the gap as it ran at a top speed of 7 miles per hour in my direction. There we go. I sprinted as fast as I could down the tunnel, occasionally looking back as the creature continued to gain ground. "It's too fast," I said as I realized it would catch me before I could lose it. I glanced over the tracks and began running left, my breath catching my throat as I spotted a pack of 4 hounds in the distance. I looked behind me to see the skin creature was still chasing me, its eyes locked on its current target. "If I can get the hounds to attack it or something," I said as I returned my gaze to the pack of hounds in the distance. "Hey, dog freaks!" I cried as I waved my arms in the air. 2 of the hounds immediately began barking as the pack of 4 charged at me from the front. I listened as the skin stealer seemed to wail in anguish, still maintaining its speed as it pursued me from behind. I darted to the right, just barely avoiding the first hound as it skidded to a stop in front of the skin stealer. It snarled before scrambling away from the deadlier creature, running in front of it as it continued to chase me. I darted left, barely avoiding another hound as it jumped at me, kicking off the ground as it swiftly changed directions. My heart raced as I watched the last two hounds charging at me from two different sides. I took a deep breath and charged, diving like a baseball player to the home plate as the two hounds leapt forwards, one of them yelping as it hit the ground rolling as the other one hit the skin stealer, causing it to wail loudly. I quickly got to my feet and began running as fast as I could away. The sounds of anguish and corrupt humming mixed with the yelps, snarls, and growls as the skin stealer quickly made its way through the four hounds. I glanced behind me, watching with horror as the tall, pale yellow creature tore the skin from the hounds' bodies and placed it on its own. Vomit rose up in my throat as I gagged, slowing to a stop before throwing up on the orange stone rocks below. I choked back tears as the smell of vomit mixed with the smell of death. As the smell of vomit mixed with the smell of death filled my nose. There we go. I watched as the skin stealer dropped the last flesh-covered corpse to the ground, placing the final shred of the hound's skin on its body before it locked eyes with me. I froze, waiting for it to attack, but it just turned around and aimlessly shambled away. I wiped the vomit from my lips and stared at the four shredded bodies of the hounds with shock. Fuck! Oh my god. Is that what that thing would have done to me if I didn't do what I did? I said with mass amounts of fear and disgust filling my voice. I felt more vomit rise in my chest and turned away, leaving the four rotting piles of flesh and bluish-black blood to decay in the tunnels on its own. Aren't the hound thingies, aren't they a creature in this place? They're a creature of this place. They're not a home thing. They're creatures of this place, I said as millions of questions began pouring into my thoughts. Glanced at the four corpses one last time before speed-walking straight forwards, wanting to leave this tunnel as soon as I possibly could. The creatures stole the skin off of those hounds while they were still alive, I said, shock and fear still filling my voice and body language. I glanced around nervously as the constant stench of rot and decay began to make me sick to my stomach again. I took a deep breath in, trying to calm down a bit as the overwhelming sense of isolation and danger filled my entire being. I looked around before beginning to walk again, the dark orange rock walls becoming an orange blur as I zoned out over time. I had to clear my throat, sorry. The sounds of water dripping from up high began echoing down the tunnel as overwhelming anxiety began filling my emotions. Water? I said as I began to walk faster. The idea that there was drinkable water somewhere gave me hope of survival. I swallowed, trying to keep my throat from going completely dry as I grew even more dehydrated. I'd gone at least 4 or 5 hours without water, having escaped the death rats on the previous level sections, and having to run away from the hounds had made me increasingly dehydrated. I began to run, the sounds of my feet hitting the uneven solid ground echoing down the tunnel and into the distance. The smell of mildew and waterlogged wood filled the air as I began to slow down. Okay, we got 3 pages left. There's water up there, said as I looked at the puddle in front of me before staring up at the ceiling. A steady dripping water source that seeped through the rock and began dripping into this tunnel system. I need to go up, I said as I ran through the puddle in front of me, soaking the lower cuffs of my jeans and the top of my gym shoes as the water splashed outwards whilst I disrupted the piece of the puddle for what was ahead. Man, that was a mouthful. The sounds of dripping water continued to echo down the tunnel as I ran as fast as I could. My eyes fell on a skin stealer up ahead, causing me to slow down. Shit. I don't see a door or a hiding space either, I said as I began to slowly creep forward. The skin stealer clicked as it looked around, aimlessly wandering to the left before emitting a loud humming noise that echoed through the tunnel. I have to go past it, I said nervously as I continued to slowly make my way towards the skin stealer that lied just up ahead. I took a deep breath before cautiously walking as slowly and quietly as I could. Maybe it doesn't see me as a threat right now, I said quietly as I stared at the skin stealer in front of me. The 30-foot gap between me and the skin stealer slowly became a 20-foot gap. I froze as the skin stealer turned slightly, facing the wall to my left as it hummed loudly. It went silent before aimlessly wandering over to the wall, making another series of clicks. The smell of water began to mix with the stench of rotting skin as I began to feel the overwhelming sense of danger the skin stealer gave off, causing my breathing to waver. I stumbled as I lost my footing and fell to the ground. The skin stealer wailed loudly before turning to face me. Shit, 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 I said as I scrambled to my feet, readjusting my backpack as I kicked off, angering the skin stealer as I sprinted away from it. It wailed loudly before charging at me, quickly gaining as it clicked and hummed. 7 miles per hour versus my 8 or 9 was unimaginable speeds that allowed it to catch up. Sorry, I lost my spot. The sounds of my footsteps on the uneven rock echoed down the tunnel as I ran as fast as I could. My head spun as I began to run low on energy, my body being starved and extremely dehydrated as I failed to tend to my food and liquid situation. My throat went dry as I glanced behind me, the skin stealer just being a few feet away as it clicked and wailed. Its sunken white eyes were locked on me as it ran in a way similar to a human, but it seemed clumsy with its movement, like it didn't know how to act like a human when it looked slightly like one. I took a deep breath and leaned forwards, allowing me to run faster slightly. It is 11:30 at night. I'm running off 2 monsters, just so you know. I took a deep breath and leaned forwards, allowing me to run faster as the smell of water, damaged wood, and rusting metal became overpowering. This place is fucking huge, I said as my breathing grew more and more uneven. My foot slipped as my shoes slid on the rocks, the water from above soaking the ground even more and more as I progressed. I cried out before stumbling forwards, the skin stealer grazing my back as its hand brushed against the back of my supply bag. My feet slid as I struggled to maintain my speed on the wet rocks before I got back my balance. I glanced behind me to see the skin stealer click angrily as it slid on the water before coming to a stop. I smiled at myself before losing my footing, my shoes losing traction as I slid uncontrollably on the wet rocks below. My heart rate soared as I fell forwards, rolling over the wet rocks after crashing on the ground before slamming into a dip in the ground hard. The wind was knocked from my lungs as I came to a rough stop on the uneven ground, gasping for air as bruises began forming all over my sides and arms. Ow! Ow! Shit! I groaned as I slowly rolled on my stomach. My head pounded as I looked up at what was in front of me. With all the attention I had kept on the skin stealer, I had almost missed a stairwell leading upwards. That has to be my way out, I grunted as I slowly got to my feet. My arms were covered in water and small cuts and bruises from the fall. My hips and waist were covered in bruises as well. I slowly limped over to the staircase and hesitated as the overpowering sense of danger filled my mind. Shit, I have to. This is the only stairwell up to where the water is. I said to myself as I began limping over to the stairwell again. The overpowering stench of waterlogged metal and wood hit me like a truck as I hesitated again. This is the only way to get to the water, I mumbled as I tried to convince myself that it was okay, ignoring the overwhelming sense of paranoia that was consuming me. Little did I know my sanity was decreasing rapidly over the levels I was going through. Well, it's now or never, I said as I glanced over my shoulder at the skin stealer behind me. It wailed like it was in pain as it kept its eyes on me, not being able to make its way over the slippery, uneven rocks in front of it. I took a step forwards before limping up the staircase, hoping to find the source of water as a blanket of paranoia fell down around me, worsening my physical and mental state as I had reached the top of the staircase. Fuck. I'm gonna pass, I moaned in pain as my head spun furiously, causing me to lose control of my body as it went limp. I had run out of energy, completely dehydrated, running off of a few hours of sleep in the past 2 days, and barely any food. I hit the water-covered ground with a splash as I fell unconscious in the waterlogged station, my body laying in the dark as the sound of water became the only sounds around me. I inhaled one last time of fresh oxygen before everything went dark. Chapter 19, The Waterlogged Station. Why you should never trust something that looks human, but actually isn't. I woke up to the overpowering stench of water and mildew as I regained consciousness. Why am I soaking wet? I mumbled groggily as I pushed off the ground, my shirt hanging low as the water weighed it down. Oh, I mumbled as I looked around me. I was laying in a large pool of shallow water that was filled with chunks of wood, metal, and random bones and trash. I sighed before getting to my feet, shaking my backpack in the hopes of getting rid of some of the water as I unzipped the main compartment. I swear if my flashlight doesn't work, I'm just gonna drown myself in this disgusting water, I said as I sifted through my backpack for my only source of light. I pushed aside some empty bottles of almond water that I should have thrown away long ago and pulled the flashlight out from the bottom of the bag. My head spun as anxiety ate away at me, my hands shaking as I shook the water from the flashlight before flicking it on. It flickered for a couple of seconds before powering on, shining a faint beam of light into the waterlogged station I was in. I smiled as a sense of relief washed over me. Thank God, I said to myself as I zipped my backpack, soaking wet supply bag from the... What? I said as I... Sorry, I made it. Oh, new record. 2 minutes in before I stuttered. Check out other videos because I do these all. Disclaimer, I read these with real voice because I hate the idea that making this with AI, it would have no personality and shit. That's why I do this. So please don't click off the video. There will be a few times where I'm like, oh, fuck, I said this wrong. But it's all part of the amazing process of making something that isn't AI these days. I'm going to reread the paragraph because I kind of spoiled it. I swear if my flashlight doesn't work, I'm just going to drown myself in this disgusting water, said as I sifted through my backpack for my only source of light. I pushed aside some empty bottles of almond water that I should have put away so long ago. I'm adding this sentence, by the way. I pushed aside some empty bottles of almond water that I should have gotten rid of long ago and pulled the flashlight out from the bottom of the bag. My head spun as anxiety ate away at me, my hand shaking as I shook the water from the flashlight before flicking it on. It flickered for a couple of seconds before powering on, shining a faint beam of light into the waterlogged station. I smiled as a sense of relief washed over me. Thank God, I said to myself as I zipped up my soaking wet supply bag from the ground and slung it over my shoulder. I'll fix that later. The bag made a wet smack as it connected with my back, making me gag slightly as the stench of mildew and waterlogged wood continued to fill my nose. I looked around before taking a step forwards, my gym shoes filling with water as my feet sunk into the ankle-deep water that flooded this area. Sorry? I feel like I'm going to implode. This is my 4th chapter of the day, and it is 2 hours deep. This is also 8 pages, so you're in for a long one this time. My eyes strained as I moved the flashlight around, slowly running the thin beam of light along the walls and floor. Well, it could be worse, I said as I began slowly walking through the ankle-deep water deeper into the station. The sounds of dripping water echoed through the dark chamber, as well as the sounds of me walking through the dirty water as I searched for the exit. This has to be the way out. I mean, I went so far for this, I said as I observed my surroundings. The entire station was barely lit, and a massive pool of discolored ankle-deep gray water covered the entire area. The smell of rotting wood and mildew was overpowering, the stench of water-damaged stone and metal mixing into it. Tall gray pillars with faded red lines around the middle supported the ceiling as water constantly dripped from above. The sounds of running water and constant dripping echoed constantly through the entire station. I kind of want to get out of here before I get some sort of horrible disease, I muttered as I lifted my foot up from the water, the murky gray liquid pouring off of my shoes as it steadily dripped off my pants legs. I took another step forwards, plunging the foot I had just lifted into the air back into the discolored pools that covered the sublevel. With all the stuff that wants to kill you, I wouldn't be surprised if this water is filled with something, I said as I slowly and cautiously made my way through the stagnant, discolored water. The sounds of something moving in the dark corners bounced off the wall as I stopped in my tracks. I glanced around before shining the flashlight beam over the top of the water. The sounds of something snarling and grunting sounded to my right, causing me to instantly divert my gaze off of the water and in the direction of the sound. "Hello?" I called as I slowly moved the flashlight over the area the noise came from. Ripples moved outwards in the water out of the corner of the flashlight's beam as I instantly moved the flashlight over the ripples and upwards. A scream caught in my throat as my flashlight beam revealed a grotesque, reddish creature with beady black eyes. Its lips were completely sunken in, exposing a sharpened row of discolored human teeth. "That can't be human," I said as I stumbled back in shock. The creature's skin was a reddish brown and appeared to be dry and flaking. Its flesh was covered in holes and pustules that that leaked a thick reddish-brown substance that appeared to be a mixture of pus and blood. Its eyes were sunken in and consisted of beady black dots. Its lips were almost completely gone, exposing a set of human-like teeth with decaying gums and dead enamel. Its skin looked extremely wrinkled, and it stank of rotting flesh and decaying flesh. Its nose was shaped similar to that of a human's, but all that remained was a subtle bump in the holes of its nostrils. "It looks like a human," I choked as it snarled at me, maintaining eye contact as I shined my flashlight directly at it. "What are you—" I was cut off as the thing snarled angrily and lunged towards me, splashing water towards me as it shambled forwards at shocking speeds. My heart leapt into my throat as I jumped out of the way, diving to the ground as water splashed outwards. I got to my feet quickly as the terrifying creature turned and faced me, snarling and shaking as it lunged again. I grabbed my backpack and swung, the leather sack once again connecting with an entity's face as the creature extended its arms towards me. It snarled and wailed like a human crying in pain as it crashed to the ground. Its reddish-brown skin pulsed as it got up from the shallow water and charged again. I darted left, its almost all-bone arms grazing my back as I shined my flashlight in front of me. "The thing was a human," I choked as it turned to face me. It snarled before darting into the shadows, disappearing behind a crumbling stone pillar before vanishing completely. "It's gonna come back," I said quickly as I began searching for a way out. The sounds of something moving in the water came from all around me as I began to search for a suitable weapon instead. I spotted a metal pipe poking out of the water a couple of feet away and looked around before going straight for it. The wretch snarled as it lunged at me from the right. "Nope," I grunted as I leapt forwards, diving into the water with my hands outstretched as the wretch darted back into the darkness. I scrambled on all fours to the metal pipe and grabbed it with both hands, remaining on my knees in the water as I looked around frantically. "It's like it's hunting me," I said as my eyes darted around in the darkness. The wretch snarled behind me as I leapt to my feet and swung, the rusted metal pipe connecting with the side of the wretch's face with a sound that was a mix of crunching dry leaves and tearing flesh. The creature wailed in pain as it darted back, readying itself to charge forwards as a dark red liquid began to pour from its fresh wound and down its face. "Just go away!" I cried as the wretch snarled angrily. My eyes darted around its body, staring at its tearing reddish-brown skin as it peeled from its body. I kicked off, splashing water towards the hideous creature as I ran down the left hall of the water-filled station. The wretch wailed and snorted before disappearing into the shadows behind me. I gripped the metal pipe tightly, and as I ran, the sounds of splashing water sent off as my feet hit the ground, echoing through the darkness. "Where is it?" I said as my eyes darted around my current surroundings. The sounds of movement came to my left as I turned around and swung, the metal pipe missing the wretch as I swung too early. It snarled and made a gagging noise as it grabbed the pipe with two hands, its bony fingers crunching as they bent around the rusted metal. I yelped as the wretch pushed forwards with an incredible amount of strength. "What are you?" I screamed as I spun my body, ripping the pipe from the wretch's grasp as it snarled loudly. I faced what was ahead and kicked out, my gym shoe connecting with the wretch's thin, shredded legs as I ran forwards. The creature wailed as it hit the water face first, its legs crunching as they bent unexpectedly, cracking the skin as the wretch's grayish dark red blood soaked the water. I glanced behind me to see the wretch crawling through the shallow water as it attempted to continue chasing me. Man, this is fast-paced. The sound of its wails and snarls echoed down the tunnel as they bounced off the dripping stone walls of the station. "The thing is not fucking human. It was not human," I said as it glanced behind me again. Its beady black eyes stared at me as I slowed down. It appeared to be pleading for help. I stared into its eyes as feelings of guilt and worry began to set in. What do I I choked on my words as the wretch wailed, the sounds of its distorted human-like cries filling the air as they traveled through the flooded station and into the darkness beyond. I took a step towards the creature, feeling like I should help it as my grip on the metal pipe loosened. Was this thing once a person like me who got trapped here? Will this happen to me one day? I said softly as I began to grow sympathetic for the creature. I began to walk over to it, forgetting the dangers around me entirely as I walked straight up to the creature that tried to kill me less than a minute ago. It whimpered, its distorted crying filling my ears as the darkness surrounded us. I dropped the metal pipe, the sound of it hitting the water echoing down the tunnel as the metal pipe became completely submerged. Are you okay? I said softly as I locked eyes with the creature. Its beady black eyes appeared to scream for help as they stared directly at me. I reached out, my hand almost touching the creature before it snarled angrily, swiping a set of razor-sharp claws over my flesh. I screamed in pain as the wretch lunged forwards, its beady black eyes locked on me as it attacked. I scrambled backwards on all fours before getting to my feet. The wretch wailed as it grabbed the metal pipe from the water, almost immediately knowing where it was as it gripped it in its bony, shredded fist as it swung it at my legs. I stumbled back, causing it to miss as it crawled to its feet. It lunged forwards, the pipe aimed at my head as I ducked. "You dumb fucker!" I cried as the metal pipe whizzed past me, smashing through the concrete pillar to my right. I kicked off, stumbling in the shallow water as the wretch snarled angrily. The creature swung again, the pipe rushing past my neck as it once again missed. I dove forwards, rolling to the left as the metal pipe just barely missed my head. The water rippled as the wretch darted into the shadows to my left. I panted as my head spun furiously, my chest heaving as I brushed past with death. The wretch snarled in the shadows as I sprinted through the shallow waters, flooding the station or whatever was in front of me. It's hunting me. I'm so fucking stupid, I said as I glanced behind me. I cried out as the metal pipe flew from the shadows, the large metal rod spinning in the air as it soared towards my skull. My knees buckled as I hit the water, rolling as the metal pipe bounced off a cracked concrete pillar and spun off into the darkness. My weapon is gone, and so was its weapon. The wretch snarled, its gags and cries echoing all around me as I scanned the darkness for the current threat. My breath caught in my throat as the sounds of splashing water came from behind. I rolled to the left, causing the wretch to swipe its clawed hand at nothing as it stumbled over to where I once was. I leapt to my feet and ran, leaving the creature behind me as I pumped my legs furiously, soaking the legs of my jeans as the stagnant water splashed outwards with every fall of my feet. I have to get away from that thing, I hissed as I glanced behind me. The wretch was gone, having vanished from the open area as it hunted from the shadows. My eyes ran along the walls and floor as I searched for more weapons. The sounds of fast-moving water filled the air as I continued to run blindly ahead. The air grew cold, spreading goosebumps along my arms and legs as my... Reading too fast. The air grew cold, spreading goosebumps along my arms and legs as my breath formed in clouds in front of me. I slowed, my stomach growling as the sounds of water surrounded me. "I'm so hungry," I groaned as I looked around. The lava had nothing for me to eat, drink, or do. I hadn't slept in what felt like days, and the last thing I had was a bottle of almond water 7 hours ago. "I want to give up. I want to give up," I said softly as I slowed to a stop. I looked at the dull, isolated area around me as the sound of water running became a background noise. "There isn't a way out. I'm gonna die. What if that thing I saw was..." I shuddered. "Was just something like me who got stuck here too long," I said as feelings of dread began to sink in. The smell of rotten skin filled the air as I snapped out of it. "I need to leave this place. This entire world, whatever it is," I said as I began to blindly make my way through the ankle-deep water towards what was ahead. The sounds of whispering surrounded me as I began to grow paranoid. "Who's there?" I called, my words echoing for a while before being swallowed by the shadows. My head spun as I began to run, the backpack bouncing on my back as the water soaked my clothes and skin. Let's see. Goddamn, 5 more pages? Oh, my lord. Hold on. I lost my place. Scrolling. Yep, there we go. My head spun faster as the darkness became a blur around me, the faint outlines of the station disappearing completely as I ran blindly ahead. "I just want to find some food, water, and a bed. I just want to be safe for a single day, please," I whispered to myself in the dark as the water splashed around me. My legs began to grow sore as I stared blankly ahead, my mind located in an entirely different place than where I was. Thoughts of just being safe for a day began to fuel me as I sprinted through the water, passing concrete pillars and advertising posters covered by a decaying glass pane as I dashed through the shadows. The snarls of a nearby wretch echoed through the air as I glanced around me, continuing to run forwards. "Where?" I was cut off as I ran directly into a fallen support beam, my body flipping over the rusted metal rods as I hit the ground rolling. My body hit the water with a splash as the air was knocked from my lungs. I rolled through the stagnant water as my body and clothes tore and ripped against the uneven rotting ground. Sorry, I need to stretch. Read these all in one go. Sitting on a bed, reading a fucking computer screen is... Oh man, I've been at this for 2 hours, guys. My head pounded as my entire body was enveloped with immense amounts of pain and fatigue. I groaned in pain as my vision blurred. The snarls of an entity nearby grew closer as I struggled to get to my feet. I tripped. I groaned as I weakly looked over the ceiling supports that I had fallen over. The stagnant water stung as it entered my new wounds and gashes, causing me to moan painfully as waves of pain began crashing over me. Get up! I grunted as the sounds of the wretch grew closer than ever. I looked around in the darkness, struggling to focus through the waves of excruciating pain as I searched for the nearby wretch. The sound of congested and distorted breathing and snarls filled the air as ripples began spreading into the water to my left. I groaned in pain as I struggled to stand, pushing off of the ground as the filthy, discolored water filled my cuts and scratches. The wretch gagged before entering my view, its peeling, darkish red skin almost blending with the darkness as it appeared to limp around aimlessly. That's the one I injured, I whispered to myself as I snorted it before gagging on nothing. It appeared to sniff the air, the two holes in its face that laid where a nose should be pointed slightly upwards as they expanded and contracted. The wretch froze, looking in the darkness as it appeared to be deep in thought before emitting a bone-chilling growl from the depths of its throat. The creature's head cracked as the skin shifted suddenly. The wretch's black, beady eyes now locked directly on me. Stay away, I groaned as I moved back with one arm, keeping my body on its side as the smell of stagnant water filled my nose. I hesitated before scrambling to my feet, causing the wretch to lunge at me. I stumbled in the dark as the water once again soaked my legs, splashing outwards as I ran as fast as I could after the fall I had just had. The wretch snarled angrily as it limped after me, its wounded leg appearing to be rotting away by the second as dark red blood soaked the area around the broken bone. I need an exit, I groaned as I struggled to keep my supply bag on my back. The wretch gagged before reaching out, grabbing the back of my backpack as it pulled me back. I growled in pain as the wretch began to pull me towards it using the bag of supplies I had on me. I squirmed as I dug my heels into the uneven ground, the water filling my shoes as I struggled to keep my distance from death. The wretch snarled hungrily and angrily as it yanked the bag on my back with its peeling, bony arm. I slid my shoulders out of the straps as the bag went flying into the darkness, the wretch wailing as it went stumbling back, crashing into the fallen ceiling support before falling into the water with a splash. It took my fucking bag, I growled as I ran as fast as I could away from the wretch, not wanting to give it a chance to get back up while I was nearby. The sounds of steadily dripping water and my feet splashing through the shallow liquid echoed through the station as I ran silently through the darkness. The ground became more and more uneven as I went deeper in, venturing into an older area of the station as I stared straight ahead. My lungs burned as I listened for the sounds of more entities before I began gasping for air. My lungs burned. Yeah, I just read that. My heart pounded as pain shot through my chest. Fuck! I growled in pain as my chest stung with immense pain. Damn. My vision blurred as I grabbed the area over my heart with my right hand, cupping it over my pectoral muscles as I groaned in pain. My head spun as whispers filled the air around me, the scent of death floating after me as chills went through my body. I looked around, pain and confusion covering my expression of fear and doubt as I searched for an exit. There's nothing here, I groaned as I dropped to my knees in the water. The steady dripping from the ceiling punched itself into my thoughts like a hole puncher on paper as I stared at the two-inch deep, filthy water all around me. My heart rate slowed as I realized My heart rate slowed as I relaxed, tears filling my eyes as I looked around me, my eyes darting over the crumbling pillars and deteriorating concrete. Why am I here? What did I do? Why do I deserve this? How do I deserve this? Just let me out. I don't want to do this anymore, I said sadly as tears streamed down my face. My eyes stung as the filthy water mixed with my tears, my body enclosed, smelling of mildew and rotting stone. What even is this place? Are people just sent here to die? How did they even get here? I whispered sadly before stopping as I took a shaky deep breath in. The sounds of dripping water became background noise as I sat in the filthy water in silence. I sniffed before bringing my hands from the water to wipe my tears. The smell of dirty water filled my nose as tears continued to fall down my face. Maybe I just need some food, water, and rest, but I don't even know if this place has all that stuff in one place, I said sadly as I stared at the flooded, abandoned station around me. It just has that at isolated areas with nothing in them, and just completely alone here, I whispered softly as I looked around. The water around me moved gently against my body as I sat in the shallow pools, gathering my thoughts. Are some levels just more dangerous and mean than others? I said as I began to remember each level I had been to. Some of them had more supplies and less entities, while levels like this one had no supplies and tons of entities. Are these places I'm going to not from my reality? Is this another galaxy or world? I don't ever get to leave? It sure seems like it, I said as I trailed off. I curled up, bringing my knees up to my chin as I stared down the station into the distance. The smell of rotting concrete and water-damaged rock filled my nose as I sniffled, the last few tears racing down my cheeks before dropping into the discolored water below. I took a deep breath. There is a way out, though, I said as I began to regain some sense of hope, not wanting to sit depressed in the dirty, shallow water around me as I looked around more calmly than before. The sounds of steadily dripping water continued to fill the air as I shifted my position. The sounds of my body moving the water filling the station as I got to my feet. I may have no food, water, or light source, but I have hope that I can leave this place. There can only be so much stuff in this world. I will finish all these, what do I call them, levels? I'll finish all of these levels eventually, I said as I began to shuffle through the shallow water again, this time moving east as I focused on what was ahead. I've been to all these weird places, and not even one at a place where I could truly relax. Hell, I even got killed in the beginning. Sleeping sent me to another level. I don't know why I have more than one life in this place, but it's better than dying on one day. On day one. Multiple times in a day, even. I said to myself as I walked to the flooded station towards what I hope is the far east wall. Whatever this place is, it's different. It's bigger. Everything in this place is different. This one level alone had like 6 different areas of varying style. I'm guessing they all repeat somewhere down the line, I said as I looked at the almost pitch black flooded station in front of me. Let's see, 2 more pages. The outline of multiple pillars laying back in the darkness filled my peripheral vision as I listened to the sounds of danger while I walked. For these sounds of danger while I walked. Each entity seems different too. They all behave similarly, but they all have their own minds. Especially that rotting reddish-brown thing that was hunting me earlier. And those weird dogs, I said as I smiled at the memories of my first initial reaction to a hound. Every place has some sort of purpose here. Everything seems to work together as one massive hive mind, but there's still one thing I don't get. Where are all these other people? Well, where are all the other people, I guess? There's no way I'm the only person who ended up in this place. Those reddish-brown creatures look similar to the human. Really similar to a human. I said as hundreds more questions poured into my mind. What if those creatures really once were a person? That means I'm going to have to be more aware of my physical and mental state. I said as I looked at my arms, holding them outwards as I stared at the hundreds of cuts, scratches, bumps, and bruises. Maybe if I ever escape this level, I can get another bag of supplies. Hopefully I find more gauze, too. I don't want to turn into one of those creatures in this place, that is. If that's what happens when you don't take care of yourself in this world. Hopefully I just read that. I said as I listened to my stomach growl, shooting a wave of pain through my lower chest and abdomen as I began to feel the pain of starvation. Really hope I find some food, too. I mean, I'm so hungry right now. Maybe there isn't just stale bread and that almond water stuff. Maybe there's other foods out there, somewhere. I said as I began to dream about a 5-course meal that was solely for my own enjoyment. Speaking of food, what about the levels and... Well, fuck. I messed that up. Speaking of food, where did the items and materials in this place come from? Does the world just spawn them into levels like some sort of video game? Is that where I am? In some sort of video game? I said as I continued walking. My heart soared as the faint outline of a staircase came into view up ahead. There's no fucking way! I said as I began to run, the sound of my feet hitting the water echoing through the station as I sprinted through the darkness for the staircase ahead. Even if it's not the exit, I just want to get out of this flooded station. I couldn't even drink any of the water, I said as hopes of being sent to a better level sprung forth in my mind. I approached the stairwell and slowed to a stop, staring at the crumbling stone steps as they led upwards into a wall of pitch-black nothingness. It leads to nothing, I said as my glimmer of hope began to sink. I have to try, though, I said as I began to slowly walk up the stairs. The bruises on my hips burned and stung as I made my way up the deteriorating steps. Well, I said as I stopped 2 steps before the wall of shadowy black. I guess this is it, I said softly as I glanced behind me. The stagnant water rippled as it flowed up against the bottom steps, appearing to quiver and sway as it became still over time. Here goes nothing, I said as I hesitantly walked up the last 2 steps as everything went around me. Fuck, I ruined this. Damn, I ruined. Oh my god, I said as I hesitantly walked up the last 2. I ruined it again. Sorry to ruin the suspense. I mean, that's literally the last fucking sentence. Here goes nothing, I said as I hesitantly walked up the last 2 steps. Damn, 2 is even spelled wrong. This is crazy. Last 2 steps as everything around me went dark. I hope you're ready for the concrete jungle, guys. Level 11. That's what's next. Yeah, sorry for messing up so much in this one. This whole 16-hour compilation of the entire novel, maybe even 20 hours. I mean, these are all singular. And then you got the compilations of all the chapters in the arc. But then that 20-hour one that's coming when I finish all 92 chapters, just you wait. Man, see you guys in the next chapter. Have a good day.